episode is all about the art of negotiations. It's all about me negotiating my pay for everything that I do as a Black woman. Now, I can't speak for negotiating as a white man, as a white woman, or even as a Black man or an Asian woman or a Latino person or whatever. This is specific to me as a Black woman and the things that inform why I ask the things that I ask and why I make the decisions that I make and how I determine what I deserve to get paid. And I specifically like to make sure that I put that in context because it's not like, oh, so my Blackness requires an extra $50. It's not that. It's just that context of my intersectionality really affects how I view and how others view me, but really how I view and how I communicate what it is that I'm asking for and what it is that I need. So if you're interested in learning about negotiating your pay, keep watching. So before I get into these 5 tips, I want to kind of, again, really talk about the context. As a woman, it's really new for women to be in the workforce. So there really hasn't been a whole lot of conversation in my life from the working women in my life about how to, 1, put a dollar amount on your worth, and then 2, advocate for that. We know that women get paid less than men in the workforce pretty much across every industry. And then even further than that, Black women get paid less than white women on the pay scale. And if I'm not mistaken, Latina women get even less than we get. So all of those things are really important to the context of the tips that I'm gonna give. They're not a huge enough factor to say, oh, don't do that one because you're not Black. It's more so keeping those things, keeping my identity in context as to why I chose these 5 particular things. So let's jump into it. Tip number 1, know your industry standards. Make sure you do your research. 9 times out of 10 on whatever union website there is to represent the production or whatever work that you're doing, there is a pay scale, kind of a standard pay scale that you should be familiar with. So that being said, I did a production last year. It was off Broadway. And when I initially agreed to it, I agreed to an ensemble role with the pay that they had offered. I said, cool. And as the process began to unfold, I was asked to do more things. And so what I had to do was go on the AEA website, do some research, look on Playbill, look at what literature and information was available to me. And if I really didn't find any information there, I would have called. That's another resource. But find out what's the pay scale. So I looked at the pay scale for Broadway productions. I knew that this was an off-Broadway production, so it obviously wouldn't be Broadway pay, but the pay scale should be proportional based on the type of contract and based on their budget. So that brings me to tip number 2. Additional responsibilities require additional compensation. So like I said, I got offered an ensemble role, which was great, cool. And the money was that they were offering was good. But then the creator, the composer said, actually, I need you to also learn the lead for the other lead role to understudy and cover in case she gets sick or can't be there. Cool, no problem, I can do that. Oh, and we also really loved your audition piece, so we want to add it to the show. Great, I love all of those things. That being said, those are 2 additional pretty large responsibilities in addition to an ensemble role. So no, it wasn't okay anymore for me to accept the pay that was initially offered to me because the initial offer was only asking me to be an ensemble member. So now that all these other things got added, we needed to renegotiate. And with those 2 things in mind, being a cover/understudy, as well as now becoming a soloist and an ensemble member, y'all got to come up off the money. So again, going back to the first tip, I used the industry standards and the pay scales that were on the Playbill and AEA websites. And what I did was I included that in my email and I showed that not only do covers and understudies and swings on Broadway get paid for being an understudy, cover, and swing, meaning I had to acquire all this information and be ready to go on at a moment's notice, but they also get paid when they actually do go on. So I had all of that information in an email, and at that point, There was nothing that I couldn't ask for because I had the backing of my industry standards and I laid out. So this is what you initially asked me to do, and now you're asking me to do these 3 things. So I need more. All of that brings me to my 3rd tip, which is always be ready to walk away. You have to always be ready to... Viola Davis, excuse me. You have to always, always, always be ready to walk away, even if you think it's the best, greatest opportunity of life. Because if you're not getting what you're worth, if you're not getting what you deserve, and if you're not getting what you need to be successful, then is it really an opportunity? With this particular production that I've been referencing, I gave a deadline in my email, and it wasn't a threat. It wasn't strongly worded. It was, it is my hope that this will be resolved by the final dress rehearsal in order for me to continue with the run of the show. And that was a really nice way of saying, if this is not resolved by the final dress rehearsal, I'm okay accepting pay for the rehearsal process and still walking away. I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, if I was going to then be doing all of those responsibilities and getting paid the same thing as somebody who was only singing choral parts, was it really an opportunity? Or would I be just giving a whole lot without anything in return? The 4th tip is to know your worth. And this is a really hard one. It's very difficult oftentimes to quantify what you have to offer when it's not attached to like products or materials that you have to buy, right? So if you are a makeup artist, for instance, I have a really close sister friend who's an amazing makeup artist and taught me everything I know. And for her, she has specific products she has to buy. She has a formula for travel that she uses. She has all of those things in place. And it's a little bit easier to kind of quantify, well, this is the labor, this is the resources. So boom, 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 this is my pricing. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's a little bit easier because there's dollar amounts attached to those things. So for a person like me, how do I tell people when they say, well, how much to sing my wedding? So here's what we have to factor in, right? For my worth, I went to one of the top conservatories in the world. It was very expensive. It was very rigorous. It was very stressful. And the reality is, because I was able to matriculate through that program, it prepared me for a very wide variety and vast variety of options when it comes to music. So I'm taking that into account. I'm taking into account that I'm 29 years old and I've been singing professionally since I was about 9 years old. That's 20 years of experience, honey. That's 20 years in the game. Also taking into account that me, Tamara Jade, have a unique skill set that I have learned to capitalize on in order to make money, and that is I can sing any genre and I enjoy singing any genre. So if you need me to come in and sight read and a choral piece that's more classical, I can do that. And I can sing soprano or alto. I can sing R&B. If you need somebody to come in and your church is more traditional and does more classical anthems, but you need a gospel singer for the day, you can call me because I can come in and sing flatfoot gospel, or I can transition back into a more classical sound. You know, that's a unique skill set that everybody doesn't have. And so I've learned to also include that. Travel. Child, the amount of money that goes into travel sometimes, you don't even think up front about those things. Those are things that you have to think of. So all of those things kind of contribute to what you're bringing, what your worth is to the production or to the gig, whatever the gig is. And I would love, love, love to talk a little bit more deeply on how I come up with my pay rates. If you want to see that, definitely let me know in the comments. And the 5th and final tip is related to this new year that we're in. Your prices should go up every year. Every year, January 1st, that you, or whenever your work anniversary is, that you started freelancing and started doing whatever, you have a whole nother year of experience now. So yes, maybe last year you got my services for $250, but this year it's $300. Or it's $275, or whatever you feel like is appropriate for you based on the skills that you've acquired now. Maybe this year you play guitar now and I don't have to bring anybody else with me. It's me, my angels, and my guitar singing, "Baby, look how far we've come." Yeah. Whatever it is that you feel like has contributed to what you have learned now over the past year, do an assessment. Give yourself an annual review if you have to. Sit down and say, what do I have now that I didn't have the year before? What do I have now in terms of a skill set that I didn't have a year ago? Or what can I do now that I couldn't do before? Or how have I grown as a freelancer? How have I grown in my craft? Those things all contribute to the fact that you deserve a raise every year. On most jobs, you get a 2% raise, annual 2% raise, or 5% raise, whatever the industry standard is for your industry, every single year because you have another year of experience. You shouldn't treat yourself any differently because you're the boss. So again, just recapping those 5 tips for you. 1, know your industry standards. 2, additional responsibilities require additional compensation. 3, always be prepared to walk away. 4, know your worth. That includes your education and your skills and your experience. And lastly, give yourself a raise every year. All right, dreamers, I hope you enjoyed my video on the art of negotiation. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Comment, let me know what you thought and what you want me to continue to talk about in the future. And if it was helpful to you or you think it'd be helpful to somebody else, go ahead and share. And as always, stay inspired, stay empowered, and stay motivated to keep chasing those dreams. Later, dreamers.